coming! They're coming! They're already here! You're next! You're next! They're coming! You're in danger! You see? They're already here! Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man at your services. How are you all? Hope you're all doing very well after all that shenanigans there. Yeah, 1978 saw one of the greatest horror sci-fi movies that we've ever had. The 70s were a rife time of incredible movies, of genre expertise, and really pushing the envelope. But in the horror genre and sci-fi, we had The Exorcist, we had Suspiria, we had Halloween, we had Alien, we had Star Wars. All of these things came out, and we had another version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which I have erroneously said throughout many reviews over the years and talking about it sort of as an aside on the channel, that it's one of the better remakes out there, one of the best ones, like The Thing. But The Thing is not a remake of the original Thing from Another World. It's a different adaptation of the original novella by John W. Campbell. Likewise, Phil Kaufman's 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers is not a remake of the original 1956 Don Siegel version of the same name. It's just a different adaptation of Jack Finney's original novel, which is there, it's right there, Jack Finney's original novel from 1954. Funnily enough, in 1954, another fantastic novel came out which proved hugely influential, same as this, and they are kind of similar in many ways, as we will discuss throughout this probably rather lengthy video. Richard Matheson wrote I Am Legend, the father of the zombie apocalyptic sort of saga, came out the same year, 1954. And of course that was filmed several times, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We had Don Siegel's version, obviously, of Invasion. Then we have Phil Kaufman's version. Then we had Abel Ferrara in 1993 did a version with Gabrielle Anwar and Meg Tilly and Forrest Whitaker. And Lee Ermey's in there as well. And it's okay. It's kind of a broken film. It's kind of, they kind of ran out of money before they could actually finish it properly because it just ends. But then you got another version with Daniel Craig and Nicole Kidman called Invasion, which was just absolutely piss poor. I reviewed that when it first came out because I thought, oh, it's an Invasion Body Snatchers movie. It's another update. I can't wait to watch this. And then I wished I hadn't. It's diabolical. But for now, after all this rhetoric, let's sit back and analyse one of the greatest horror, sci-fi, body horror instigators that we've had. Phil Kaufman's 1978 San Francisco set, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, how this came about, Phil Kaufman knew Don Siegel. Don Siegel had directed the original, and he also directed many Clint Eastwood movies, including Dirty Harry, which is set where? San Francisco. Now, Phil Kaufman was living in San Francisco at the time, but he went into the studios there, and because he knew that Don Siegel was sitting there, and he said, oh, you know, your movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I love it. Can I have a crack at it? Now, this is where this whole remake thing comes in. It's very easy to label films that are rehashed, rebooted, redone, remade. When, as I just said, this is just an adaptation of the original Jack Finney novel, which is set in small town America. Santa Mira, the little town is. Santa Mira, paid homage to by John Carpenter with Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Yeah, it's all connected, it's all connected. And he said, like, wouldn't mind having a crack at that. Now, Phil Kaufman himself has said that he basically said to Don Siegel, I want to remake your film. So I suppose in some capacity, this film can be termed quite, you know, generally and accurately as a remake. But I really don't want to see it that way. But that's how Kaufman himself put it to Don Siegel. And like basically he wanted the blessing. And Don Siegel said, yeah, go ahead. And a bit of serendipity. The leading character, the leading actor of the original 1956 version was Kevin McCarthy, the great Kevin McCarthy, who does the you're next, they're coming, they're already here, and gets hit by a car at the end. But in that horrible sort of studio-enforced, tacked-on happy ending, he manages to speak to the FBI and the CIA, and they take him seriously. Don't worry, we're going to sort this out. So it's got a rather ludicrously happy ending to it, when it should just end with him being hit by a car, going completely crazy. Well, he walked into Don Siegel's office whilst Phil Kaufman was there, discussing this, and Kaufman just thought, well, what are the chances of that? We're talking about redoing your movie, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and in walks the star of that movie. Because he was still doing stuff, Kevin McCarthy was doing stuff at that time, and for years afterwards. And he's in The Howling, and he's in Twilight Zone, the movie, and he's great. So we're like, it's got to happen then. This is fate, obviously. So he gets cracking on his take of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Now, it is a wonderful, wonderful movie. It's a very 70s movie, and yet it's also quite a timeless movie. The very fact it's been readapted time and time again to fit in different environments, it's testament to how good and strong the original Jack Finney story is. Space seeds, space pods arrive on Earth, and if you are unlucky to fall asleep beside one of these things, it will take you over, destroy your original body, and gestate a doppelganger, a duplicate of you, complete with your voice, your memories, everything you had is intact in the new version, except for emotions. So you are basically a drone. And in the original novel, there's a definite capacity for a hive brain mentality for these things. And they will take over the small community with the threat of taking over cities, the entire North America, and then obviously by extension, the world. But the original movie was set, like the novel, in small town. So it was a sort of rallying cry against communism or against McCarthyism. Not Kevin McCarthy, the star of the movie, another coincidence there, but against McCarthy himself and his cause, which split America asunder, obviously. And so you could view it in whatever way you wanted. It was basically the small man against a totalitarian society, which was just destroying everything and converting everything to a one unit mass, for the new order. But obviously, by extension, these are aliens. So in Kaufman's version, which is written by W.D. Richter, who also wrote Big Trouble in Little China. And where's that set? Little China in San Francisco. You see? Frisco. It's all coming together. Built on 43 hills. The Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz. One of the most metropolitan counterculture societies that America, in fact the world, has ever known. Perfect place to set this. So Kaufman and Richter said, well, okay, we're not going to do small town America, because that's where people change. It's going to be a bit too obvious because everyone knows everybody. Let's put it in the faceless, anonymous mass conglomerate of a huge metropolitan city full of multiculturalism, and let's see how that works. And it works amazingly well, because a city is full of it's sinister. You meet strangers literally every moment of the day, people you might never see again. You don't know if they're human or not. People stare at you from bus windows, or in San Francisco, from trams, from shop windows and doorways. The big city is a sinister, horrible place. London has that attitude. New York has that attitude. LA certainly has that attitude. But cities, Liverpool, Manchester, Glasgow, do not have that attitude, funnily enough. But these bigger cities have this sort of, no one wants to get to know anybody else. You're going to get too close. And if you do, you just brush them with your shoulder. It's very antagonistic and very threatening. So you go into your house at the end of the working day, you shut the door, and then you take all sorts of precautions. You bolt the windows, all kinds of home defense, because you don't trust anybody that's out there in that city. You don't want the city getting inside. Perfect battlefield for what Kaufman and Richter came up with in their adaptation. So the film starts off with this dreamy, surreal alien planet, barren, and you've got other suns and moons that are all there in the background. And these spores lift off, because this planet is now clearly dead. It's devoid of life. There's nothing left for these spores to do. So they lift off and they drift across the universe on the solar winds. And they arrive on Earth in San Francisco. And they come down in the rain from the clouds, and they land on all the trees and the foliage. And in a brilliant, brilliant opening sequence, we're pretty much tuned in to what these things do. Because straight away, they come down the rain and we see them land on leaves and fronds, and they begin to gestate and form tentacles, and they become bigger, and they become like rather turd-like lumps, which then sprout a great big colourful flower. And people are obviously like, my God, these look great. If you've been to San Francisco, it's full of potted plants. People, it's very bohemian. It's always been, we'll talk more about the culture, but people have potted plants and flowers all over the place. So something new like this would easily be, oh, pluck that. Oh, put that in a jar of water or a pot. Let's see what happens to that. It's lovely, isn't that weird? Very strange. They take it home, and almost instantly, once we've gone on to grassroots San Francisco, we're seeing humans, we're seeing people in activities in the parks, on the streets, going to work, commuting, whatever. We see straight away unusualness. We see in a glorious cameo, Robert Duvall, who was a friend of Phil Kaufman at the time, was in town, and he said, do you want to do a cameo? Come into our movie. Yeah, I'll do a cameo, yeah, Duvall says, because he loves the smell of cameos in the morning. And we see a shot in a children's playground of a priest on a swing, and it's Robert Duvall, but he's staring at us. He's staring at one of the main characters, actually. He's just staring, but he's a priest in his robes with his dog collar on, and you know straight away, he ain't right. That's got to be a pod person, because that's what this film and this story created, the entire concept of pod people, doppelgangers, imitations, a dwindling band of us against a huge expanding army of them. And it's fantastic, isn't it? So, but you've got Robert Duvall there, and it's just, you've got the sci-fi element that's crept in there. You already know, right, it's an alien threat, and it's mutated. It's interacted with rainwater and moisture in our atmosphere, and now it's forming this plant life, which everyone's picking up and taking home. Why is that priest acting so weird? And that sets in motion. People are taking these home, and they're sleeping next to them, and then one by one, bit by bit, neighbourhood by neighbourhood, they're being taken over by these pods. As I've said, what will happen is, I know I'm racing ahead, but you all know the film, so it's just a big celebration of it, really. But we're going to go into it with a fine-tooth comb, obviously. But you've got the flower there, right? You're asleep next to it. The pod itself will be formed. Tendrils will reach the person who's going to be podized, and it will obviously transmit who that person is to what's growing inside the pod, which is your doppelganger, your replacement. And then, you're left with just a pile of ash and dust, which will then be swept up, little brush and pan, by your new version, and then dumped inside the back of all the trash collecting vans, which run rampant and rife throughout the entire movie. One of the first things you see in the movie, apart from the alien spores, is a truck coming over one of the bridges or one of the hills, and then you'll see them all the time. Our main characters will forever be walking past one of these trucks, and you'll see all these billowing sort of bales of dust and grey ash, which we now know is former human beings being compacted and then more getting shoveled in by the bin load. And that's people that are gone there. And everyone else who's just walking around oblivious to what's happening. Kaufman said as well, that in the first half of the movie, I want you to hear the sounds of nature. You're going to hear birds tweeting, the wind rustling through the leaves. You're going to hear all that sounds, organic sounds of nature. but I'm going to gradually reduce all that. So you're only going to hear sirens, machinery, and these friggin' dump trucks everywhere. You're going to hear them all the time, the kind of whirring noise that they make. And it's really clever and insidious. Again, the faces and the people on the streets, it's insidious. It creeps into you that you know you can't trust anyone there. We'll come on to the filming techniques, which is really magnificent. But let's meet our characters, our main bunch. Donald Sutherland, as he works for the Department of Health, and he's Matthew Bennell. In the original, Kevin McCarthy, who would have been this character, is Miles Bennett, but this is Matthew Bennell. And we first meet him, he's got into a French restaurant, because he knows it's a dirty restaurant, and he's got a job to do. But he finds that someone else has done a job in there as well. As he plucks from a pan, what's this? A special ingredient for their secret sauce. What's this? A caper. That's not a caper, that's a rat turd. No, it's his caper. If that's a caper, you eat it. Monsieur Bennell! And then he goes outside, because he's gonna cite this place. They're gonna do tests on it all, obviously, but he's got a job to do, and he's gonna take this place to the cleaners, literally. But as he goes out, in another great image from the movie, you have the cracked windscreen of his car, and there's two workers from the restaurant who were just, leaning out at the back entrance, like they're just staring at him. He knows they've done it, but he can't prove it, obviously, and they're just glaring at him. And through that distorted windscreen, you will see much of the city through this fractured spiderweb of glass, which again breaks down everything. A face here, a face there, one will be staring at it, one will be looking the other way. But you're going to subliminally pick up on this through that cracked lens, which you're looking at really. And straight away he's a guy who's got a work to do. He's got a basis in science. He's not a scientist. He's not a military man either. But he's our main protagonist. And but he's got a foundation in science, so he knows what he's talking about. He's also a bit of an authority figure. He works at the Department of Health, and he's a stickler for the rules. And also, these people don't like him, but he's not afraid of that. So you've got hostility again straight away. Now he works with Elizabeth Driscoll, played by Brooke Adams, and who's fantastic in this movie. Everyone's fantastic. I'm going to say this right now. The cast are phenomenal. They all do incredible work in this film. But Elizabeth Driscoll works in the same thing. He's basically her boss, but she works in the lab there. And she's engaged to Jeffrey, who's a dentist, played by Art Hindle, who we would see only the year after, or even the same year, thinking about it now, in David Cronenberg's The Brood. As it turns out, what's her name? Brooke Adams. I always get her name wrong, But Brooke Adams, who plays Elizabeth, she would also appear in a David Cronenberg movie, his adaptation of Stephen King's The Dead Zone in 81, 82. She didn't do a great many movies, Brooke Adams, but she's electrifying in this. And she works for Matthew. And the two of them are quite clearly very, very close. They are not lovers, but they're best friends. She's engaged to Jeffrey, and Jeffrey, she plucked one of the flowers. And overnight, something happens to Jeffrey, that they're lying there in bed, it's all cozy. And you'd be cut to the flower, which is just sitting there in a little glass jar full of water. And then next we see him sitting beside the bed in his suit, all businessified. But he's got a brush, he's staring at it, but he's also got a brush and pan, and he's scooping up what we now know, the remains of the guy she was engaged to, because he's been subsumed and duplicated throughout the night, and she's none the wiser. But this Jeffrey, after being super friendly and, the same old Jeffrey that she knew and loved, ain't the same Jeffrey now. He's very brusque and emotionless. And he's got things to do which he's never done before. Like, he's putting out the rubbish. And why is that dump truck outside? Is this rubbish day? And what's that stuff he's put in there? And where's he going? Why is he being so weird? So she's a bit put out by this. And she tells Matthew, but as Matthew says, like, well, look, he's a dentist. All dentists are crazy. I'm going to jump around things here. But as the next few days go by, Jeffrey's more and more alien to her. And she follows him around. She tries to go to his office, just to, what's going on, but can't get in there. He's not there. So she looks out one of the windows in the office, the block where his surgery is, and she sees him on a patch of waste ground out there with a nurse meeting other people in this barren waste ground. That waste ground, by the way, is now one of the most popular areas in San Francisco. It's densely built up and urbanized, but it's just a waste ground in this movie. And she's seen them passing things to one of the great big sort of things. Well, we know what they are. They are pods. And these are all pod people who are now working to take down various elements of the infrastructure, because that's how they do it. It isn't just, people living together and families. They're going to take down any way of people escaping from the city. They're going to break down the societal structure so that everyone in charge, they will be alien pod people first of all. So there's no means of escape. There's no one to report it to because no one's going to believe any of this. It's very clever. So she tells all this to Matthew, and Matthew's like, look, well, tell you what, why don't you come and meet my friend, Dr. David Kimball? Now, Kibner, Dr. Kimball, isn't that the fugitive? Kibner, played by Leonard Nimoy. By the way, folks, I should just point out right now, over the last couple of days, I have developed a bug. I don't know, Mrs. Kilt-Man brought home some strange flowers and put them on the bedside table, and I haven't felt right since. I've got a raging sore throat and I've got a raspy, horrible cough, which will manifest itself throughout this video. I apologise, because the more I talk, the drier my throat gets, and it closes over, and then coughety cough cough. But don't worry, I have some medicinal whiskey. Cheers, y'all. Actually, my daughter brought this into the house last week. I think she's getting over it now, but I've got it now. Bloody hell. So I apologise in advance for any coughness and raspiness and sniffiness. But yeah, so come and see my friend, the psychiatrist, Dr. David Kibner. Let's get the name right. And but I don't want to see it shrink. Oh no, he's not going to analyse you. Don't worry about that. But what he'll do, he'll work out quickly to put your fears at rest. That is Jeffrey having an affair? Has he turned gay? Has he got a social disease? He'll allay your fears. Now, Leonard Nimoy is magnificent in this movie. Bouncing off the back of being Spock, the logical Vulcan, he's a face that everyone recognises and you instantly trust him. But cleverly, very cleverly, he's playing one of these pop shock psychiatrists, which are all the rage from the start of the 70s. Let's put it in perspective. You'd had, the hippie age, the age of Aquarius, flower power, and all that sort of stuff. You'd had that throughout the 60s. And in San Francisco, that massively carried on into the late 70s. San Francisco was the countercultural icon of North America. Everything went, cults, different beliefs, different faiths, everything could take place there. And because of the multicultural society there, from every different corner of the globe had their own wacky ideas, and it was a big melting pot. So, and it was also a breeding ground for these sort of shock psychiatrists that had strange revolutionary therapies, and that's what Leonard Nimoy's playing. But because of that recognisable face and the fact that he's smiling and grinning and he's quite emotional, which is exactly what Spock isn't, Again, it's clever, isn't it clever? You're subverting what people expect. We trust in Spock, but Spock has no emotions, and he's just logical. He's calm and logical. And you meet this guy who's a psychiatrist who should be the epitome of calm and logical, but he's exactly not that. And so they go and meet him he's doing a book signing. some great big bookshop there, which Phil Kaufman, the director, filled with all his friends who are actors, directors, writers and poets. Filled it to the rafters. His own wife is in that sequence as well. And but Kibner, then Nimoy, is meant to be signing, it's a book thing. But within there, you've got other people who are, especially this woman called Catherine, who's like, my husband's not my husband, and he's trying to calm her down. But she's in a mad, distressed state. Matthew was already seen as well at let's say about Chinatown in San Francisco. Well, he's been there to get his dry cleaning sorted out. And the Chinese woman who takes his stuff, he goes, that's a coffee stain. She goes, that's not coffee. And he goes, it is coffee. I know, because I put it there. It's not coffee. Takes it away. And he's about to leave, but that woman who works there, who runs the place, her husband, Chinaman, says, you doctor. And he's like, well, I work for the Department of Health, but what's wrong? He said, you doctor, my wife, that not my wife. And he's going, what do you mean? That not my wife. She wrong. And he goes like, you mean she isn't right? She not my wife. And he goes, oh, you mean she is? And he goes, no, that not my wife. And then he sort of drifts into the background. But we see the woman again, like, who's just staring, because she's heard all this, and she's staring at Matthew. And she goes behind a sheet of plastic and becomes kind of submerged and, almost like you're looking at a kaleidoscope version of it. So it's clever filming techniques and stuff. Again, all very subliminal. So Matthew's heard this obviously from Elizabeth and from other people, and he's picking up that strange vibe that something's not right. And now in the book signing, Elizabeth sees this woman and she associates with her. I know what you're talking about. And before he's even met Elizabeth, Leonard Nimoy's character, Kibner, is like, look, I'm dealing with this, just back out of this. Look, what's wrong with your husband? It's not him. He's changed. It's not him. The scar on the back of his neck, what? It's gone. No, it's still there. He's like, look, because her husband is there. And he turns around, and he's one of the people that we've seen Jeffrey meet with the passing of the pods and all that. Like, so we know already. We're clued in. And he's like, look, come over. Look, who's this? It's Ted. And who is he? He's my husband. See, it's Ted, your husband. Everything's. It works in Leonard Nimoy's favour as Kibner, because Kibner just preaches. He writes books on like self-help and good mentality. It's sort of motivational shite, and he's made a fortune out of it. So he's just he's reenacting exactly what he preaches in his books, and he's doing it at the bloody book signing as well. So he repatriates these two. But of course, now Elizabeth's going to say, look, well, this is what's happening with me and my fiance. So you'll get a discussion there. Now, anyway, in this sequence, we are introduced to another of our main characters, and it's what's his name again? Oh God, Jack Belichick, and it's Jeff Goldblum, who at this time was super skinny before he bulked up for Seth Brundle in The Fly, but he's got all his nervous agitations, that speech pattern, and his intensity, his real jittery loquaciousness, which is symptomatic and purely exemplary of Jeff Goldblum in full effect. And he's a poet, but he's a bohemian poet, and he cannot stand the bullshit that Kibner writes in his books and how everyone's falling for all this. Where's Jack London? He says, like, he's pissed off because he's gone there to read his own poetry to all his crowd and not been allowed to. So he's not happy. He's super, super pissed off. But he's also a good friend of Donald Sutherland, of Matthew. So Matthew trying to placate him. He's got Elizabeth, pouncing on Kibner. Kibner trying to keep everyone happy. But they will discuss this, and Kibner says to Matthew, look, there's some kind of hallucinatory flu going round. I've had 7 patients in the last couple of days, all citing the same thing. He said, it's just something going on. And he tries to tell Elizabeth, look, people jump into relationships too quickly. So, you know, and they're looking for an excuse to get out. Like, and they're citing anything as being the problem, being the root cause. When really, it's yourself. You're too afraid to confront the fact that you're not ready for this relationship. Just go back home, get a good night's sleep. If this is the recommendation, get a good night's sleep. The worst thing you can do in this environment, in this situation. And to prove his point about, like, you know, how everyone's got knee-jerk reactions to things, Jeff Goldblum follows them out onto the street, and he's pissed off and he's mumbling to himself. And suddenly, while he's talking to Elizabeth and Matthew, Leonard Nimoy just grabs Goldblum and fucking throws him against a shop doorway, a shop window, and he's in his face. And like, of course, Goldblum's like, "What the hell? What's going on?" Like, and he just pushes him away. He goes to Elizabeth. "See, how did that make you think? What did that make you think when you saw that happen there?" It's shock tactics. And he's exactly what you had throughout the 70s. So he's not a strange character. He's exactly what you got. Leonard Nimoy also came up with the idea of wearing. He has a weird, antiquated leather gauntlet on his, I think it's his left hand. Now what it is, it's for carpal tunnel syndrome. You know, where you trap a nerve in your wrist and all that, like, and also tendonitis, which is a similar condition. And you can wear like they put like a wristband around you now, but this is like a glove, and it's never explained in the movie what it's there for. And Nimoy just said, "I think this guy should wear this," and Kaufman just went, "Yeah, okay, that's brilliant." You made that film now, and your actor said, "I think he should wear this." They would be compelled to then explain why he's wearing it. Not just it's just a weird character trait, a weird trope of this guy, which just makes you think, "That's weird, isn't it?" But you never find out what it is, which is brilliant. In a modern version, that would have to be explained with some stupid backstory or an in-joke, because studios just don't allow that sort of liberty and freedom anymore with actors and performances. But it's brilliant here, works superbly. So he's got this strange glove, which is never explained. And he just says to Matthew, "Look, Matthew, just take her back, take her home. She needs a good night's sleep. Don't worry about a thing. Everything's going to be fine in the morning. Good night's sleep will sort this all out." Anyway, it's the bagpipes, folks. And I'm wearing the Hunting Stewart today. I'm playing Denny Zeitlin's fabulous score for this movie, and again, we'll discuss this. It's gonna cycle around probably a few times while I'm doing this video, and we'll come on to why Amazing Grace is playing on the bagpipes, and it's haunting and phenomenal. But so take her back home, Matthew. Just take her back home. So he does. He takes her back home. In fact, I think he takes her to his place first. A lot of this is filmed in a place called Telegraph Hill in San Francisco. One of them roads that's like that. How everyone parks on them, God only knows. My wife would be awful. She can't park on hills. The most frightening times of my life have involved her trying to undo the handbrake and start driving when she's on the top of a steep hill, because the car just goes, "Oh," and you're like, "Oh no." I've suffered this time and time again. In fact, I won't even get in the car with her. I'll wait at the bottom of the hill for her, and I'll be on my knees praying, you know, with my bollocks crossed and all that, like. But this how Matthew takes her back to his first, and he cooks her a meal. Donald Sutherland is a great cook, and you see him, and he's cutting the garlic. He's got a great big machete, ultra razor sharp, and he's doing little thin slices. It's brilliant. He's a good cook. You see him with the wok, and he's doing it all, tossing it all and all that, like. And they sit outside on the they've got like a veranda there, and he says, because she's going, "Am I crazy? Because what am I seeing with Jeffrey? Am I crazy?" He said, "You're not crazy. Do that thing with your eyes." And oh God, what's her name? Brooke Adams. I really have a problem with remembering her name. I don't know, but we'll muddle on. And in reality, Brooke Adams could do this crazy thing with her eyes. She can make them go like either side, like Marty Feldman, or go inwards. But she can spin them round as well inside the eye sockets. Just spin the eyes round at a helter-skelter speed. And he said, do the thing with the eyes. And she does it, and it's wonderful. And he just says to her, like, "You're not crazy." And the two of them just laugh. The chemistry between Sutherland and Adams is It's beautiful, and you get that. Had it been a failed romance, had she had the choice of him or Jeffrey, and she picked Jeffrey, you don't know, and you don't need to know. You just totally understand that these two are absolute best friends and will do anything for each other. But, you know, she's got her own life as well, but he'll always be there for her. And it's such a lovely, lovely moment. In fact, I think that music's playing while that takes place. But she does go back home. In the meantime, Jack goes back to see his wife, Nancy Belichick. Nancy's played by Veronica Cartwright. Fabulous actress, fabulous. Yes, she's Lambert in Alien. She's in many other movies as well. But she had double whammy in the late 70s with this and then 79's Alien. And before anyone goes, well, she was the weepy, whiny one. She was also the most realistic character in Alien as Lambert. People always cite, you know, well, Alien's one of the first films to show a strong female character in a genre movie, being, you know, Ripley, Sigourney Weaver. And like, they celebrate it because of that, and I do. Alien is a masterpiece. I love the film. But it's curious that at the same time people celebrate that, you know, Sigourney Weaver plays the strong woman, Lambert at the same time is your typical stereotypical female in distress who panics, who cries, who screams, who does nothing. She's impotent when faced with danger, doesn't warn anybody. She's just a panicky, jittery fool. The one thing she doesn't do is fall over while being chased by the alien, because she doesn't actually fucking run. She just stands there while it comes for her. So anyway, but she's great in this, and the two of them run a mud bath parlour, because this is the 70s, this is San Francisco. People have mud baths, and they sit and read novels and existential works, you know, while they're bubbling away in these big ceramic baths full of mud. I like this idea because the whole thing about the alien spores, they've gestated and mutated with terrestrial vegetation. So you've got this earthy quality. A lot of the lighting is very green, very purple. It's very sort of like you're almost in a greenhouse. So you've got green-hued lighting, and earth, the flowers and the pods are we haven't even come on to the pods yet, but you're going to see them. And so this mud bath seems to reflect the earthy quality of what's taking place. And you actually think to yourself, like, because it's just like the head of these people enjoying these mud baths, sloppy big piles of mud. If they just go beneath it for a few seconds and they come up again, they could be a different person, because what's gestating alongside you in that mud bath? You've gone into the soil, you've gone into the earth, and now we know that you can't trust the earth anymore because of what's arrived from outer space. So, but Jack comes in, Jeff Goldblum, and she's going like, this is Nancy from Veronica Cartwright. Did you get to read your poetry then? And he's got Kibner's book, and he just goes, fucking hell's this book down, and it storms off. Great camera work. The camera work is done by Michael Chapman, who stars in the film as well. You see him, he's a janitor in the Department of Health buildings, doing, you know, cleaning the floors and waxing the floors. And so you see him a couple of times in the movie playing this janitor, who is also a person of suspicion, shall we say. And Chapman does these sort of great one-take shots, going through doorways, tracking people through streets, going around things. In this scene, you see Jack arrive, held the book down, and Jack storms off, goes through all the curtains, and then all these mud baths, and then turns a corner, goes to a different room, goes into a sauna, in fact, and the camera's on, follows him. It's on one side, then it goes around him and follows him on the other side. It's handheld camera work, and it's very revolutionary, very experimental, and very, very effective. So he's not happy. Anyway, we get to meet various denizens of the mud baths, and there's one guy in a great. He's got a big sort of, I don't know, mad professor, Dr. Zarkov, Topol sort of beard and mad hair, and he puts like a fedora on, and you see him in silhouette. He's one reading this book. This is must reading, Mrs. Belichick, you know. And you see him glide past as a silhouette. You get lots of shadows in this movie. There's that bloody pod scream again. I do apologise. It's only a short soundtrack, to be honest, but we'll cover it in some depth. But you see this guy glide past as a shadowy silhouette, which looks very threatening, and yet she goes out and finds him. She's doing a massage on this other guy, and she finds him sitting there, and and he talks about the book, and like, look, time to go, Mr. whatever your name is. But again, it's a red herring, because he's not actually a strange pod person. He's just a strange person. So he has to get rid of him. In the meantime, we'll get to know a bit more of the Belichicks, and she'll go in, but the place is closed, and she'll go into one of these booths where there's just like a table where you do the massage, and there's a body underneath a sheet, and she's like, oh God, who's this now? Like, and she pulls the sheet back, and now you've got a 65% formed doppelganger, which is just this fingerprintless, sort of almost faceless, not formed body, full of spiderweb-like fur and hair all over it, and it's fucking horrible. And she's like, she screams, and obviously turns around, and she runs smack bang into her husband, Jeff Goldblum, headbutts him, gives him a nosebleed, and they're like, what the fuck is this body? What the hell is it? Who is it? And so they call Matthew, because Matthew is their friend, and Matthew's the health department. So he comes round, and they check this body out, and like, this is insane. And like, I think at one point even the hairs on this body begin, like tendrils begin to touch Jack's hand, and he pulls away from it and all that. And he goes, it's got no fingerprints. And he goes, you sure? And like, Matthew's like checking this out. Look, we're gonna have to call Kibner. Let's get him round here. You know, let's see what he thinks about all this. But in the meantime, I've got to do some other calls. I've got to talk this through, because Matthew's now thinking, hang on a minute. All the weirdness, people are saying they're not proper people. The people they once knew and loved are not those people anymore. Is this something to do with it? And Elizabeth doesn't trust Jeffrey, and I took her back to his house. What? So he goes, look, I'll call Kibner. He'll come here and he'll sort this out. I've got to go and rescue Elizabeth. So off he goes to rescue her. In the meantime, more craziness ensues at the mud baths. In a great shot, a very uneasy, queasy shot. He's now been smacked on the nose, and he's got quite a big nose, as Jeff Goldblum, and he's got some tissue paper shoved up there, up his nostril. Just look, Jack, just lie down. Go on, lie down. So he lies down, but he lies down on a massage bed, and directly sort of behind, well, along from him, with the curtains drawn back, you've got this thing lying there. You wouldn't be anywhere near it, would you? But he lies down next, well, not far from it, and shuts his eyes, and we see his skin begin to like crisp up and desiccate, flakes coming off, like. So we're getting to see again the process of podification. In the meantime, like, Veronica Cartwright, Nancy, goes in and can't resist looking at this fucking weird thing again, like, and she sees it's having a nosebleed. It's copying her husband, who's got a nosebleed, and as she looks even closer, its eyes suddenly open. She's like, Veronica Cartwright, ah! And of course that wakes up Goldblum, and they see this thing, and like Jeff Goldblum runs in a panic. Another great bit of camera work. The camera, as Goldblum runs towards us, the camera spins round, and you're right into the implacable wall of Leonard Nimoy's face, who's just standing there. And like, oh, that's a big jump moment. But that's okay, because he's our friend, isn't he? In the meantime, Matthew goes to Elizabeth's house and knocks on the door. No one's answering. And he looks in through the window, and you can see Jeffrey's got earphones on, and he's watching. Because we know he's a pod person, don't we? But he's watching this weird, almost like a test card thing, where it's got these big, on a black and white screen, it's got these clocks. One clock, and then it goes, whoosh, and another clock takes its place, whoosh, and another clock comes through, and he's just sitting there watching it. And like, you can see Matthew thinking, what the fuck is this wrong with this guy? Goes around the back, breaks in, does that great little, can't get in here. Where I said about people barricading the doors and windows, and you can see they've got like a massive wooden plank which barricades the back door with these steel anchors. Whoosh, this big bolt, and it's very sort of unsettling because like, God, people live like that. But he breaks the window. He knows he can't hear it because he's got earphones on. Although he does hear something, he kind of looks up. Matt, this is Jeffrey. Just thinks about it. And then Matthew creeps up the stairs, and because he gets into the bedroom, and they've got a little balcony there, and he sees outside on the balcony there's a pod replication of Elizabeth, who's on the bed with their skin all blistering up. There's one there, like pristine and like lying amongst all the potted plants. So quickly he panics and he grabs Elizabeth and gets her out the house. Again, it's the fact that you've got Jeffrey's wearing these big earphones, because I live in a big ramshackle old house full of wooden floorboards and long wooden hallways, and you can't creep anywhere in this house. You can't, An ant, you can hear an ant scampering along the floorboards. You can hear a spider doing it, and so, but he's got the earphones on. So he manages to get Elizabeth away, and it takes her back to, is it his place? Can't remember now. And but in the meantime, back at the mud baths, Leonard Nimoy, of course, will show me his body then. Well, it's hit. Body's gone. Shit. Where's the body gone? So they start putting their hands into the mud baths. One guy had a heart attack one time. It took us a day to find him in all the mud baths and all that. And but a window's been opened, and Nancy goes like, well, look, the window's open. Someone's got it, or it's got out. And outside that window is a scampering husky dog who's just come in. She'll be eating her post-walk snack and then slurping water. But regular viewers are used to this. And so, and outside that window, you see one of these big dump trucks, and all this human ash is there. So clearly, they've disposed of the evidence and put it away. And but where's his body then? But maybe someone's playing a prank on you. And of course, we know that Jack and Kibner do not get along. In fact, they are complete polar opposites of each other, and they hate each other. So obviously Jack's not happy that, oh shit, he doesn't believe us, and he's not going to help us out on a purely personal level. But we've now got our suspicions about Dr. David Kibner. Heavy slurpage taking place there. And here as well. I should dub that over me, slurping from this. So, Matthew calls the cops and brings them round to Jeffrey and Elizabeth's house. Elizabeth is now safe at his house. I have a feeling that Jack and Nancy are there as well, because that other body's gone. But he's called the cops and he's blaming Jeffrey for all this, because, right, whatever's happening, he's in on it. There's bodies here and there everywhere, and they're being duplicated, blah, blah, blah. And the cops are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he said, the body was there. Of course, that body's gone. The Elizabeth doppelganger has now gone as well. So no one can prove a damn thing. And you've got cops in the room, and you've got this inspector in the room, and you've got Jeffrey's there. Kibner is there as well. Actually, yeah, Kibner's there as well. And he's got, Matthew, so where's this body then? Well, it was there. He's moved it, meaning Jeffrey, her fiance. He's moved it. Well, so where's Elizabeth then? Oh, she's at my place. And the cops are like, so you took the body? No, I took her, not the other body. The other body was there. And they go, what do you mean other body? And it's like, how could you possibly explain this? Especially, how could you explain it when the people you're talking to are all pod people who don't give a shit. They know you're telling the truth, but they're working against you. Because quite clearly, like Matthew says to it, look, Kibner goes, look, Matthew, just go home. I'll sort this out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You go home, look after Elizabeth. And he goes, okay, she's at my place. And by the way, thanks for giving that away, because Kibner dropped that bombshell. And he says to Jeffrey, I'll need some clothes for her. And Jeffrey's just like, he's in his dressing gown. He just goes, yeah, okay, whatever. So Matthew just stares at him, because I don't trust you. You ain't right. So off he goes to get some clothes. That rhymed, didn't it? Off he goes to get some clothes. And then you see Jeffrey and the police and everybody else are all together, in cahoots. And you're like, oh, the paranoia builds again. Just 1 second, I've got to take the harness off the husky. Just 1 second. Come on, love. Let's get this off you. Set you free. Off you go, hon. There you go. So now we've got like our two opposing forces. You've got this foursome. You've got Jack and Nancy, and you've got Matthew and Elizabeth. They're all okay. Like, wake up, because obviously this shit happens. They're kind of working out that when you sleep. It's funny that at this stage, it's Veronica Cartwright, Nancy, that's actually sussing everything out. But she goes and blows it all by saying, well, look, who's to say that they come in metal ships? Like when they first came in metal ships and they mated with monkeys and they created us, and they're all going like, yeah, all right, yeah, that's what happened, isn't it? But it's funny that Matthew is seen he's in the background and he's getting dressed up to sort something out, to go and make phone calls and meet people and that. And he's like, he's thinking about this because, yeah, well, that may sound ridiculous, but it's no more ridiculous than what's clearly happening around here. And he will meet people throughout the street. And he goes to the dry cleaners, and so get his clothes back, like, and the Chinaman's like, everything's all right now. She's okay. We're okay now. Because obviously, in the meantime, he's been taken over as well. He's a pod person. And like Matthew's gonna get all this sort of like, it's all going on. He makes phone calls and everyone seems to either put him on hold for too long, or they know his name before he's even given his name to them. And he's like, what's going on? And in a great sequence, a great montage, you see him walking through the center of San Francisco. And you've got this, Michael Chapman is guerrilla filming. He's got a blanket or a suit jacket, and he's got a camera underneath that, and they're just walking through the streets and taking in the weirdness of the real city. People gawping out from bus windows or tram windows or from car windows, from shops. People just staring at each other. People just standing still for no apparent reason. They're not extras. These are all genuine people. And it captures that heightened paranoia of city life, to live in a huge big city where you're alienated from everybody else, and it's massively sort of impersonal and very, very sinister. And they film all this, and Matthew's making phone calls and all that. And we have had the we've had scenes of our main characters walking the streets, like when Elizabeth was tailing her fiance throughout the city and seeing him meet other people. And Matthew said, well, maybe they were patients of his. She goes, no, they're not patients of his. Like, I don't know, there's something going on, and they're passing something between each other, and they're all going different directions and all that. Well, throughout all these street scenes, you often see somebody just running and like with panic on their face, and it's the indifference that people have towards it, including our main characters in the opening sort of scenes of this kind of thing taking place. Someone in a business is just running, or a raincoat, just running and looking behind him, just running. Like little Tom Cruises everywhere, all around San Francisco, going hell for leather up and down the bloody 43 hills. And it's paving the way and sort of creating this panoramic view of paranoia on a huge scale. It's brilliant. But you've had the great cameo, of course, Kevin McCarthy, who is the star of the original movie from 1956, he reenacts the exact same thing that he ended up doing at the end of that movie. Just running into cars in the streets. They're coming, they're already here. You're next, you're in danger. He's doing that. And don't forget that fractured windscreen that Donald Sutherland's car's got. And he and Elizabeth are driving down the street and they're discussing all this. And then suddenly, you know, this figure of Kevin McCarthy legs it towards him, leaps on the bonnet, and he's pressing his face against the glass and saying all this stuff like, and they're like, well, God, it's like, lock the doors. And she's like, well, maybe we should help him. And he goes, no, I think people are after him. And he runs off again and he goes round the street corner and there's loads of people chasing after him. And he goes, and as a cop on a motorbike as well. This is before they go into the book signing. This is before you meet Kibner. So I massively forgot about saying that bit, you know, in the proper timeline. But you know what I'm like. And they drive around the corner and they hear a thud. He's been hit by a car. And there's Kevin McCarthy, the running man as he's called in this movie, credited as, lying there on the deck, dead, blood everywhere. Like, she goes, oh my God. Oh, well, he goes, well, the police are here now. They'll sort it out. We'll file a witness report at the book signing. And he tries to give a book over the phone, tries to give details away, and they clearly don't want to know. That's not massively unusual. Certainly wasn't unusual back then in the 70s, and it's even more commonplace now when you try to report any kind of crime. The police don't have the manpower or any inclination to get involved in it at all. And that's the sad state of affairs these days. So he gets nowhere with that. But that's meant to be one of these little build-ups of paranoia. Why aren't you interested? Look, we were there, the cop was there. What do you mean that you've heard nothing about this? There were loads of people there. So, if you can hear that, the rain is now blasting down. Yep. And in the rain come the spores. Oh no. So, so my cold will probably get worse. But next time you see me, I won't have a cold at all. And I'll be just implacable and very cool, very logical and very unemotional. As if. I'll still be drinking this though. That's the guarantee it's really me. So you've had all this, and Matthew's gone on his little odyssey around the streets, and he's getting through to no one. He does get to meet somebody. So they go, I'll meet you in the Central Park, well, whatever the bloody park's called, like. And you see, you don't even see the guy he's talking to. Like, look, just keep it under your hat, you know. Just don't say anything to anybody. We'll work this out. And he's meant to be someone who's from higher up, maybe from Washington itself. And but Matthew's not buying any of this. And he goes back to their place, and all four of them are there now, of course, our four heroes. And he says, like, I've been around town all day, and everyone's acting strange, and I can't get through to anybody. You know, there's something going on. This is bigger than we think. You know, so I've got other friends. I've got their home numbers, so I can phone those. But again, it gets nowhere. And of course, he goes to sleep. This is his garden. And he goes to sleep in the garden, and this is one of the big famous scenes. This is the big pod infiltration sequence, and he's there asleep in a deck chair. They're all asleep around the house, and suddenly, with all the horrible gurgling sound effects of fruit and veg being chopped, squished, popped, squeezed, crushed, done by, of all people, Ben Burt, one of the greatest sound designers ever. Does all the Lucasfilm stuff. Ben Burt was brought on board to do the sound effects for this movie. And the sound design is extraordinary. So all this popping and stuff takes place. And you get all these pods, not too dissimilar from this. A great big pod. And out of the pods come, well, they erupt into big, huge petals. These big, horrible, ghastly flower-like things. And then as the person who's being replicated is crumbling away to one side, their new version is being born, birthed from the huge pod, sack-like marrow thing. And they come out and they lie twitching and contorting and transforming and building into who was once alive as a human being. And So there's loads of them all around this place. And they reach out with those little feathery sort of spider web-like tendrils. It's all done reverse photography, how they did all this. And they reach around, you know, Matthew's asleep like that, and they reach around his hand and all that. But it's actually filmed in reverse. And then you see writhing, you see a pure Donald Sutherland thing coming out. You're like, oh my God. And these other horrible, like adult-sized fetuses are coming out and making these horrible moaning, breathing noises. Again, Ben Burt did all of this. He'd record himself breathing, and he'd obviously remix it and raise some bits and dampen some of the bits and endorse other bits with like other sounds as well, and all this fleshy ripping of fibrous vegetables and fruits. Also, his wife was pregnant at the time, so he took recordings of his unborn child's breathing and heartbeat and put that into the soundtrack as well, like. And it's really, really elaborate and extraordinarily grotesque. And Veronica Cartwright, Nancy's the one that susses on what's happening. She runs out on the balcony and sees Matthew surrounded by all these writhing, bloody alien grotesquerie. Matthew, and because he is dying, and gradually he comes awake and like, oh, shit, realizes, wake the others, in that pure Donald Sutherland voice, which is so bizarre, but great. And Donald Sutherland's also got, his hair was permed throughout a lot of the 70s, and he's sporting a perm in this. He's got mad tight curly hair, and apparently, according to Phil Kaufman, he was quite, although he was a great professional and he was very funny on set, and he helped the others through it. Although he's quite hard line with Jeff Goldblum, because and he'd take him to one side and correct him. He didn't do that line right. He should do it again. And he was quite nasty with him as well. And Kaufman was like, "Why are you being like that with him?" And he said, basically, look, I know he's a good actor, and I can make him better. I know there's a great actor in there, and I'm trying to make him realise it, like. And he also said that, oh, when I did The Dirty Dozen, Lee Marvin was really hard on me. He said, like, so I'm just returning the favour sort of thing. It worked for me, it'll work for Jeff Goldblum. And in fact, Jeff Goldblum, of course, went on to become a huge, big star. It's really pissing down though, isn't it? I better shut that door. Well, that's made minimal difference, I'm sure, but hey, it's a gesture at least. So, but yeah, Matthew, wake up! So like, wake the others! And like, they're panicking, and they see outside. They make another phone call, but Mr. Bennell, I didn't give you my name. And like, Jack's like, hang up, Matthew, hang up. They know us. They're coming for us. And Nancy again sees that the police are barricading and putting roadblocks up on the road outside, and everyone's beginning to mill about outside. Right, let's go out the back way. So they lock all the doors, they barricade the front door, and they help a leather going down steps at the back. But Matthew thinks, he goes, you know, take everybody, I'll meet you, I'll be right behind you. And he's picked up like a hoe. Is it a hoe or a rake? I think it's a hoe. And he's like a bunch of the, above the bodies, because they're all forming into that crowd, himself and the others, his friends. And he's about to strike down Elizabeth's body, fake new body, and he can't do it, but he can do his own now. And in the film was, super squishy, probably the only actual gore sequence in the movie. He fucking breaks this head apart, boof, 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 and this face just collapses. Real horrible, gloopy, dark red, wet blood, and a caved in skull. Oh, and he hits it several times, and we see it again, all squished up. And then he runs. And then the film becomes, a big Tom Cruise running extravaganza, which, without a doubt, this is what you get in the original movie. It's just, it's the hero and the heroine who are legging it through Santa Maria and trying to find sanctuary in different places, and the mob chasing after him. And you get it in this now. And without a doubt, I would say this inspired the visual look of the movie. It's at night time, you've got the neon lights, it's like neon noir, and so you've got lots of chiaroscuro shadows and Dutch angles. And Dutch angles, by the way, they're not Dutch, they're from German Expressionism, and it got mistakenly called Dutch angles because when Hollywood got hold of it, oh, is that Dutch cinema? But it came from German filming. So all these askew angles. Well, I'll talk more about that. Remind me later. So they're running up and down these streets, and wherever they stop and get their breath back, suddenly there's police sirens and police motorbikes and lights are after them, and crowds of all different types of people are running after them as well. And it's like fucking terrifying. And it ties into what you would see in Walter Hill's The Warriors the very next year, running down these neon lit streets, huge hordes of people running after other people down streets and through parks and things. People hiding up, holding up behind barricades and corrugated fences and stuff like that. You'd also see an Escape from New York, with Snake running through Manhattan, and sometimes with the likes of Maggie or Brain and the President, with mobs of the Duke's gang or the Crazies will be after him, and it's very similar to that. So I think visually, from an aesthetic point of view and a thematic sort of style, like running through the urban night, being chased by faceless goons and bad guys, it's a nightmarish sort of scenario. So, and it stemmed from this. So they now realise that they get you when you sleep. They know that now. When you're asleep, the pods will then activate, and they'll finger you up with their little fibrous tendrils, and they'll get all your intimate details, transfer it back to what's growing in the pod, and then you just crumble to nothing, and you're gone and reborn as this alien spore pod person. So we won't sleep. We can't sleep. And you know, when you think about the nightmarish extension of this scenario, how the hell would you beat this? You've got to sleep sometime. Well, you'd have to do it, you know, well, you two sleep, we'll stand guard. We see anything growing next to you, we're going to kill it. If we see your skin, you know, begin to flake apart, we're going to wake you up. Dead simple. And then when you two are awake, we'll be asleep and you watch over us. That's the only way you could do it. But they do seem to panic about, you've got to sleep sometime. No, we'll never sleep. If there's a group of you, you can get away with this. But a group of you can. But they split up because they get cornered. And Jeff Goldblum makes this heroic sort of sacrificial run. Like they're pinned down by a chain link fence. And like I think Nancy says, like they're cornering us, you know. She's actually great in this movie. She comes up with all the theories. She's the one that works it all out. And I must say, she worked even more out as well. Cheers, Veronica. Cheers, Nancy. And I think the sun's just come back out again to help propagate all the new alien spores which have now landed in the Kilt-Man's mansion grounds. There's a lot of strange vegetation out there in the morning. You watch. And so they're pinned down there, and you can hear they run through a warehouse, and it's all sirens and flashing lights everywhere. There's a helicopters up looking for them as well. And Jack just goes, look, Nancy, I love you, but you know, Matthew, get him to safety. You know, I'll drive, I'll lure him away. So he runs off. He's going, hey, I'm over here. They veered off and chase him, but Nancy goes after him. Jack, no, and runs after him. So you've got two pairs. You've seen Jack and Nancy, off they go, and you've now got Matthew and Elizabeth alone together. And they managed to. You've got one of these shots which, having done Escape and Evasion and having seen people with flashlights and duck out of the beam with that flashlight, I see this in so many movies, and you get it in here as well. And it's a bugbear of mine. Like, they're there, and they're kind of like in the shadows, hunkered down by this chain link fence, and this copper on a motorbike just, you know, wafts a torch around like that, and he clearly illuminates their two faces, and then they go, they duck below, and he just goes, He's just seen them. He's just seen them. You know, I don't care what anyone says, like, oh, no. He's just passing. He hasn't seen any detail. You fucking do. You do. If you're looking for something and your torch hits it, you can see it. That's a face. Right there. Another one right next to it. Right, everybody. There they are. But they go, and just one of those. In a film where the cinematography and the direction of that cinematography is so superlative and clever, it's one of those things that, oh God, why did you drop the ball there? You didn't have to show it. You could just ducked round and the torch could have just gone through nothing and seen nothing at all. Would have worked better. Anyway, so everyone goes off and it's just these two. I think they have a little kiss at this stage as well. But it's, again, they clearly love each other, these two. But they were not meant to be together, and they are still best friends. More than anything else, they're best friends. And the kiss is only, it's just mutual compassion. And like, look, we've got to get out of this. And, you know, they're going through a trauma, aren't they? So I don't think it's anything, you know, oh, they really should have been together the whole time. And maybe the two of them will escape and they would be lovers. No, well, well, we all know that's not the way it works out anyway. But hey, leaping ahead of myself there. They then obviously try to escape a bit more. You see them walking down streets and stuff like, and in a rather comical shot, they're walking down one of the main streets, and the camera focuses on their feet, walkie down the sidewalk, and they go past other people walking. We just see their feet, and then the pod people's feet just stop, and then other feet turn around, and then he begins to follow their feet, and then you see them looking over their shoulders, and suddenly people start moving a bit faster. Then they start running, and it goes into. It's almost Naked Gun style, to be honest. And then they turn a corner, and luckily sirens distract the ones pursuing them. And they go through all the red light district and all that, like totally nude girls live on stage. It does make you wonder, if most people are pods, what are they getting out of that? They're going through the motions, but what are they? Oh, here's Amazing Grace again. It's going to throw me every time this comes on. And it's so beautiful. And so moving as well. But what are they getting out of that? Are they just copying what they did in the human's life? So have you got people sitting there watching, you know, pole dancers and strippers and peep shows and stuff? What are they getting out of it? I don't know. Or are there still plenty of people who are still normal and this thing is still going on? You've got to wonder. It does make you think. But what they're doing, they're showing you San Francisco in all of its glory, its seedy underbelly, and its life. Because don't forget, a lot of these, they're all real people on the real streets with the real shops and emporiums and all that. So you're getting that flavour. The 70s was rife with this. So many movies captured New York and did it in a sort of time capsule sort of way without knowing it. Things like Taxi Driver, you know, things like Wolfen, which came out, well, made 1980, came out in 81. But Wolfen, a film you guys know I absolutely adore, captures New York and the Bronx in such an extraordinarily accurate way that it's almost like a historical document that you're looking at, a social filmic document. And Invasion of the Body Snatchers under Phil Kaufman and Michael Chapman's cinematography is exactly that. So you're capturing the real life and almost done in a verite sort of style, but with a strong narrative running through it as well, literally running through it. So they get into a cab to get away from all this. Who's driving the cab? It's the director of the original Body Snatchers movie. It is Don Siegel. He's there, and it's great to see him. Don't forget, this is the guy that did Dirty Harry. He did Two Mules for Sister Sarah. He did so many Clint Eastwood movies and many other films as well. And he's there, and it's a nice little cameo from the guy that has staked a claim on San Francisco film-wise, and did the original as well. And he said, like, he was quite vain about it because he wears glasses, and he took his glasses off. So if you watch that sequence, because obviously, God, I told you I forget, Brooke Adams. It's because her name is Elizabeth. I keep thinking, and her first name is Brooke. I keep thinking of Elizabeth Brooks, who plays Marcia Quist in The Howling. So I'm bound to get that name screwed up. And if you've seen The Howling and Elizabeth Brooks in that, then you know exactly why that's on my mind. But anyway, they get in the back of this cab, and Don Siegel's not wearing his glasses. If you look at Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams, they're clearly shitting themselves because he can't see anything. And he's driving through the, is it the Queen's, I think what it's called now, the big tunnel. He's driving through that, and he's turning corners. He's in the city itself, like, and they're saying to him, like, he goes, so where you going, folks? The airport. Oh, okay, well, which one? The airport? No, which airline? And like, they get stopped, they get pulled up in a big traffic jam, and they see a car in front, and someone gets dragged out of that car who's obviously human, and the bodies have got hold of them. And like, they see a cop coming down, shining that torch that sees people's faces, you know, or should do. And he comes up to Don Siegel, the taxi driver, and he goes, both of them. And then he shines a torch through, but they've run, they've split up. The back cab doors open, and they've gone. And they managed to get to the health department where they both worked. Cheers, Joel. Speaking of health, let's continue ruining mine. They get in there and they hole up. Again, Michael Chapman, who's the janitor, he's a cinematographer, he plays the janitor, and he's there again, doing the floors and all that. Like, he's seen shadowy at the end of a corridor. And they get into like their room, and the phone rings, don't answer it. A security guard shines a torch through the frosted glass windows, checks the door, they've locked the door, carries on. And they thought, what are we going to do? But they hear voices outside on the streets with a bullhorn, and they go for the Venetian blinds, have a little peep through. And all the, just kids and families, anybody, they're all walking up to this. Isn't it great? They're using the health department premises itself as the big sort of, this is our, give the pods out to people. You take them to Sausalito, you take them to LA, you take them to Oakland, you take them to wherever, like, and there's all trucks lined up, and it's a delivery, processing, distribution setup that they've got going there at the health department, of health building. And like, oh my God, it's going everywhere. We're going to stop them, Elizabeth. We're going to stop them. Oh, do you bloody think so? And the phone keeps ringing. Don't answer it. Just don't answer it. Rings again. Matthew, they know we're here. And then next thing you know, the door opens, and in walks in Leonard Nimoy, Art Hindle, Jeff Goldblum, and all the faces that we'd seen initially in all the first meetings with Jeffrey, Art Hindle, meeting all these other people in Wasteground and wherever around the city. They're all there, and it's Jeff Goldblum, and he's one of them. He ran off his sacrificial run. Clearly, he's been taken over now. They're like, Jack, David. Listen, and like Kibner. Kimball's the fugitive. Got to remember that. Kibner's like telling him, look, he gives him the whole backstory here, but it's not horrible exposition dump. You've got to tell them, look, no, you're killing us. No, we're not killing you. I hate you, David. No, well, we don't hate you. It's a new life. You'll be reborn. Just go to sleep. You'll be reborn. We're from an alien planet. We've died. We've been traveling on the solar winds for eons, and we came here. And like, you haven't got to lose anything. You can wear the same clothes, keep the same job. You'll be the same person, but you lose everything else. You lose all the things like religion, love, hate, emotions. They're not there. It's a more beautiful, pristine world. It's a better place to be in. Kind of makes it sound, plausibly, attractive to a degree. Compared to the world that we're living in right now, with all the strife and hell that's taking place, this would be the better option. And I'm hand on heart, and I love my emotions. Do I? Oh yeah. So as long as the rest of you people, all toe the line and become pod people, I'll just walk amongst you and pretend I'm one of you, but really I've got my own feelings, you know. I'll have a bit of fun on the side. In the shadows. That sounds awful, doesn't it? But they do make it sound plausible. Oh, stop that fucking screaming. I haven't even covered this yet. The shriek, the pod shriek. Get on to that again. Hope you're still with us on this. I knew this is going to be a big video. I knew that. And you guys knew going in it was going to be a big one. So, look, we're going to give you a mild sedative and you're going to go to sleep. And you're going to join us, be reborn in a whole new world. I hate you. Well, we don't hate you. You know, people will fight you. They'll stop you. Because in an hour's time, you won't want them to, because you'll be one of us. Like, come on, we're being reborn. It's a new world. Watch it happen. And it does make it sound sort of semi-exciting. So they give our two heroes this mild sedative, and you see like those retractable hypodermics going into veins. It still looks bloody horrible. I can watch any kind of squishy shit, you know, and violence, you know, but I don't like seeing a medical procedure. I don't like seeing a needle going into a vein. Oh no. The only bits in the thing, which is, well, we'll talk about the connections and the influence of this movie on other movies. The only things in the thing I can't watch. I don't like seeing the Huskies with axes in them. I don't like seeing them get shot by McCready. And I don't like seeing, needles going in. And you see it quite really explicitly and graphically in the thing. And I'm like, ugh! And yet I can watch heads tearing themselves off and sprouting legs and scuttling off like spiders. And arms being chewed off at the elbow. I can watch anything like that. Just not fucking needles. And they do it in this. But they're quite clearly retractable ones at the same time. So I'm not so bad with it in this. So in the two of them are left with Kibner and Jack. So Jeff Goldblum and Leonard Nimoy. Art Hindle and the others have fucked off for a bit. And Leonard Nimoy puts his arms around our two heroes. And it's all very like, look, you're going to join us soon. So come on, let's do it. And what you've seen earlier in a great little throwaway moment was a dartboard in there, and it says like dangerous materials on the chalkboard behind it, but Matthews took a dart out of it, like, and he's had it with him the whole time, like, and suddenly although Kibner's got his arms around him, Matthew fucking hurls him into Jeff Goldblum, and smacked the two of them against this wall. And then he's grabbed in, like, he's got him in a chokehold. And Jeff Goldblum looks really fucking, He's got him like that. And he fucking drives the dart into the base of his skull, right into his brain. So, I mean, part of you is thinking, like, well, you know, can pod people die that way? Does it work that way? They're just vegetables, aren't they? They're just alien spore vegetables. But clearly he can be, because he does kill him. Down he goes. In the meantime, Elizabeth has smashed some glass bottle, a bell jar or something, over Kibner's head, Leonard Nimoy's head, with a really fucking awesome and realistic boosh. I mean, he says holding a bottle. If you ever heard a bottle go over someone's noggin, in movies they always make it sound, it's like, it's too bright and scintillating. It doesn't sound like that, because a bottle hitting someone's head there's almost like a hammer-like clout, and wow, they nail it with this. And Nimoy goes down, and they've killed Jack, and they drag Nimoy into I think it's a refrigerator, and they lock the refrigerator and jam the door so he can't get out. And you see his face in the glass because he's coming to again, like, and make the getaway. I should say as well, because Jack and Kibner did not get along. They were massively poles apart when it came to literary and intellectual and philosophizing sort of ideas. So they hated each other. And there's a great little line, you know, when Kibner's explaining, look, this is a better world. You'll be reborn. It's brilliant. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be the same as what you were before, just without the emotions. And like Jack says, like, you know, yeah, he's right. You should listen to him. And Matthew's like, what you've never agreed with him in your life. What's going on? You hate him. And like, it's just a nice reversal. Like, well, there's no need for hate anymore because we all get along. We're all pod people. We all work together. And again, you can see it as communism, any kind of totalitarian state. This is what it is. But anyway, so they're on the run again. Art Hindle, who you won't see again after this scene. I don't think you do anyway. No, you don't. And some of the other guys that you've seen before are in the corridor with the cinematographer stuck to the floor. And they hear, I think what they hear is Leonard Nimoy banging on the glass and all that, like, no, given, well, the shriek, which you can't hear in that sequence there because he's sealed in. But they know something's going on. But R2 managed to get away. Well, they meet someone on the stairs on the way down. They meet Nancy on the stairs, Veronica Cartwright. She's coming up the stairs and they're coming down and they press against the wall like that. Because obviously, can we trust you? Jack was one of them. David was one of them. Are you one of them? But quickly they realise, she shows emotion, like, no, look, they can be fooled. You can walk amongst them. Just don't show any emotion. That's all you got to do. So they leave the building and there's a copper outside. And he's like, no, join the line over there. That's where you're going. So they sort of turn around robotically and try to blend in, walking unemotionally. Now, you've met another guy in this movie, and it's a homeless guy with a banjo and a dog. And I forget what the guy's name is, like, but and you see him at the park and all that, and Matthew knows him and all that, and always gives him a call, and always says hello to him and all that. And he's playing the banjo, but it's not him playing the banjo. It's actually Jerry Garcia is playing the banjo, just tracked over it, like. But he's there, and the thing about this movie is it didn't shy away from showing the seedy underbelly of San Francisco. And they filmed, you know that bit where Kevin McCarthy gets smacked by the car doing his big cameo, reenacting the end of the earlier movie. When he hit the deck, there was a homeless guy lying in broad daylight in the gutter right there, totally nude, and they filmed this sequence, and like at the end of it, this guy just sat up and went, you know what, I've seen the original movie and it was better. They're only filming this one. The film hadn't even been made, and this guy, and like Phil Kaufman always laughs about it. So like, look, you know, he hadn't even seen the new movie, but because of that attitude that, you know, the originals are always the best, even a naked homeless guy on the street sat up and said to the star of the original movie and the director of the new one, and said, the original's still the better one. Yeah, and brilliant. But they weren't afraid to film in some of those streets. Some of the streets that you see in this movie, you did not see in Dirty Harry or any of the Dirty Harry movies, all filmed in San Francisco, because they shied away from it all. But Kaufman didn't care. They showed a city centre, and they show a lot of emporiums and shops, and you know, and a little bit of Chinatown. They show a lot of the areas which you don't normally see. They weren't afraid to, but they went into San Francisco now is a very dangerous place to be. I hate to say that, by the way, but all of California is not the place it used to be. It always was dangerous, but it's even worse now because it's superly, ridiculously lax laws and a crime rife beyond belief. And even the most libertarian and cultural zeitgeist of a place, a bohemian of areas in North America, San Francisco, has become quite a cesspit of gangland violence, drugs, and rife crime. But this film, even back in 78, when it wasn't that bad, went into areas where you would advise not to go to, but they still did. And it's great that it's in there. It's, again, like a time capsule. I love this sort of thing. And so, yeah, where are we up to here? Oh, yeah. So Veronica Cartwright's leading these. Look, you can fool them. I've been walking amongst them for hours. Just don't show any emotion. Well, during one of their run, I think their run to the Department of Health, Matthew sees that the banjo player and his dog and some other homeless people are lying beside pods taking shape. So it's like he says to them, wake up, but they haven't got time to stop, and the guy doesn't wake up. His dog's lying next to him. So he boots the pod and damages the pod. You see the pod drip oozy red stuff. It looks like blood, so let's call it pod blood. So he's hurt it. So these are now walking amongst the crowds who are all carrying pods, and they're just uniformly walking with all these contingents of people. And then suddenly, I mean, it looks quite funny now, but you've got to remember when the film came out, it was a right shocker, this, a audience reaction. People shit themselves. The dog, the down and out guy, banjo player's dog, runs out across the street, straight up to them, and it's got his head on it. So it's like this. It's a dog with a human head. And a tongue that comes out, a big dog tongue. It is the dog. And Tom Behrman, who did the effects with Eduardo Lourdes, I think his name was. And they put a mask, just like a latex mask on the dog's head. And it comes out, and they filmed it in kind of jerky, fast motion. So it comes out, it looks so weird. It's so surreal and bizarre. And of course, Elizabeth screams, like that. Gives them away, so they have to fucking leg it again. Oh god! And everything gets split up. I think Veronica Cartwright just manages to keep her cool and walks on, but they have to leg it now. And this is I've only knocked one element of this movie because of the torch in the faces, and you'd have seen that the guy would have seen their faces in the torchlight, and yet they just go duck out of the torchlight and they get away with it. Bullshit. Sorry, I've done pretty well so far, I'll be honest. There's all them trucks, those distribution trucks, getting loaded up with pods and stuff like that, or dropping them off to then be picked up by other people and distributed in cars and buses and trains, I suppose, and what have you. And they get chased by a massive crowd, and they're legging it. And I say this film's full of lots of running scenes, and Donald Sutherland's got long ass legs. Now, there's a story, there's a famous story that Kaufman and Sutherland and Brooke Adams have said this many times. They just kept on running, and Brooke Adams is wearing they're not stilettos, but she's got blocky high heels, kind of like that big. That's pretty big. And she's in a red dress, and she's running alongside Donald Sutherland throughout a lot of the movie. And she said, like, look, I can run forever. I can beat you. So in one take, this particular scene, because what they do, they run away from the crowd, and he managed to get on the back of the truck and get away. But before the filming of the getting onto the truck thing, you've got he said, like, right, just run, action, and they ran. And she said to Donald Sutherland, I can beat you. And he went, you're never going to beat me, because Donald Sutherland was running every day anyway, just to keep fit, and they ran. And Kaufman said, like, they just kept. I said, cut. They kept on running, and they into the distance, and then about half an hour later they came back, and she went, I beat him, you know. And Donald Sutherland says, like, did she fuck? So the length of my legs, I could outrun her anytime, like. But I don't know. It's a bit like Rocky 2. You know, at the end, like, you know, you beat me, Stanley, by 1 second. Beat me by 1 second. You've got any idea how hard it is for a man of my intelligence to live with? You know, so you've got Rocky and Apollo Creed have that final, but you never know who actually wins that final. They're little, because it just freeze frames and becomes an oil painting. And so I don't know who actually won that race. But looking the way that Sutherland runs, I think he'd have done it. But she's right up there. And in those heels, Christ almighty. But the point I was getting to, the stupid elements, they got on the back of this truck, a big empty truck, which is going back to the pod factory, the pod farm. They got on the back of this, and the crowd's still running behind, and they're doing the pod shriek, which we've now heard a couple of times, but as I say, I'll talk more about that. But the pod shriek. So there's a huge crowd. The pod person driving the truck, is he just completely unaware of what's running down behind him? Can't he see his rear view mirrors, his side mirrors and all that, this mob, and realise, hang on a minute. So they just sit at the back of the truck watching as they recede, the mob recede into the background. You can't keep up with it. It's a bit, I think you're asking a bit much there. That could have been done slightly differently, how they got away with it. The truck quickly swerved off a different road and lost them in the turn of a corner. But anyway, so they get away with it and they end up at the pod farm, which is a huge warehouse on the dockside. And the pods, they've been almost like, it's a big greenhouse, I said before, about greenhouses and the lighting that Michael Chapman brings in greens and purples. The purples are for the fluorescent lights they have in a lot of these like greenhouses, big industrial sized greenhouses, like sort of turquoise and blue and purple lighting, and which this film is massively infused with. And it parks up there, a little forklift truck dumps a little crate of pods on the back of it, which again seems a bit silly. Wouldn't you push that to the back? Because you've got to put more on, haven't you? You don't just leave one little crate. Anyway, they manage to get out and like they walk away and they see inside the factory that people are, well, there's all these propagating troughs and tanks with millions of pods in them, and it's a huge big set. By the way, set wise, there are no sets in this movie. Everything is a location, everything. The only time they built anything without using real locations, real offices, real shops, real premises, real streets, real environments, was for the mud baths, which was an old disused shop on a real street. So it was a real premises. They went in there and they just put the mud baths in. So it's a real place. It wasn't studio set built. It was on a street in a real location. And this warehouse at the end is a real warehouse on the docks of San Francisco. So all they did was put the prop pods in there. That's all they did, and put the lighting and all this. The rest of it's all real. So they managed to see all this shit. It's everywhere. Oh my God. And they go and hide. They manage to get down on the banks. It's all night time, and they just hunker down. I think they have another kiss here. And it's all, you know, what we're going to do. Don't worry, we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them, Elizabeth. And they hear, well, let's do it. Let's do it now. You've heard it several times. Let's do it again now. They hear this. Amazing Grace, played on bagpipes by the pipe band of the Royal Scots Dragoon Guards. And it's wonderful. Do you know why it's here? Phil Kaufman and another film director, only just before making this, sat in a pub, a bar in San Francisco, and they heard this playing, Amazing Grace, on bagpipes. And they both vowed, this is so haunting, we've got to use this in a movie. And it was Phil Kaufman, whose very next film was Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and he thought, I'm going to beat you to it. I forget the other guy's name now, but trust me, he's not someone famous. Sorry to the guy himself, but so he managed to get it into his movie first. And so they hear this, and Amazing Grace symbolises hope. So they hear it, and Matthew goes, you see, it's ships. It's ships. We can get away on a ship. We can get away, Elizabeth. We can get away. We can get away. So he goes down to check on the ships, and he creeps on down there, and he sees that the ships are being loaded up with pods. So this, Amazing Grace, hope becomes hope's dashed. And that is also the emphasis of the song, the hymn itself. You've got hope, but it's always played at a tragic event. You know, hopes were dashed. And it's just so, because, you know, he said to the other guy, look, we've got to get this into a movie. You go your movie, I'll do it in my movie, but who gets there first? And Kaufman had the perfect opportunity with this. It symbolises getting away from San Francisco, going across the world, you know. But doesn't matter, because the pods are on board as well. So you're screwed. And it's horrible. So he goes back through all this sort of wafting grass. Elizabeth, 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 in that Southern voice. and he's told them don't fall asleep. Obviously, don't fall asleep. Oh, they had speed before they got caught in the Department of Health by everybody else. She goes, this will keep us awake. What is it? It's speed. And he goes, well, how much do you take? She goes, it says take 1. It says take 5. Is right, you know. So he comes back, and Elizabeth's fallen asleep, hasn't she? And he picks her up, and like, oh, should we get on? The score's a bit weird, actually. It kind of really is Amazing Grace, but we'll leave it from that. And he picks her up, Elizabeth, and Donald Sutherland. Now, I think no one said this. I've heard the commentary by Phil Kaufman. I've seen interviews with everybody involved in this movie. I've never seen anyone reference what I'm about to mention right now. But I think it has to be. Elizabeth wears a red dress, and he cradles her, and she begins to collapse because she's obviously, well, you know, you're way ahead of me. She's being poderized, and she crumbles. And we see he's got hold of her like that, so we see his face with hair back of her head there. But we then cut to the side, and we see her face beginning to drift with like crumbling flesh and skin coming off, and then it begins to, and then it collapses on itself, and then she just becomes, whoa, and he goes, oh, 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 oh God. I'm only that because I'm no good at it. She's wearing red. Do you remember at the start of Don't Look Now, several years before, another pivotal genre twisting movie? Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie lose their little daughter. She drowns in the start of the movie. Then they go to Venice to try to get over their grief. And but she's wearing a red raincoat, and he holds her body, and he wails and screams, and he's doing the same to another female, bedecked in red. It has to be. There's no way he would have been like, oh, do you know what? This reminds me of something I did just a couple of years ago. It has to be. It has to be. There's no other explanation for it. There has to be. But no one's ever mentioned it. No one has mentioned it at all. I'm mentioning it now, and I'm sure I mentioned it when I reviewed this movie for AV Forums many, many moons ago, when it first came out on Blu-ray. And I reviewed it on, I think, DVD Times as well, on DVD years before that. Anyway, but I'm mentioning it now. But that's got to be, do you not think? It's got to be a reference to it. And of course, and he gets cut off in mid-whimper and wail. Oh, oh, Matthew. He stops and he turns around. This crumbling mess just falls. And there's the nude, reborn, doppelganger, pod version of Elizabeth walking towards him. Matthew, they're right. Join us. You know, and he's like, oh God. So he legs it. He's in rage mode now. So he breaks back into the air, this big factory plant, this pod farm, climbs up into the rafters and all that, gets himself an axe, a fire axe, and he's worked out all them trestle tables full of all these pods being propagated. All right, I'm going to bring down all these electric lights. Douche, cuts all the cables, and these things fucking crash down and burn all the pods. It's a token gesture. He's lost, hasn't he? There's no way he can possibly win, because they've already shipped them everywhere. They're already massively en route to other cities. So it's going further afield, whether he likes it or not. But you'd fight back, wouldn't you? You would think, look, I'm doomed. I'm not going to give in to you fuckers, but I'm not going to sleep. I'll blow my brains out before that happens. But I'm going to take as many of you down as I can, and I'm going to have bloody good fun doing it. So he starts taking these things down. And it's worth noting that this is entirely Donald Sutherland doing it. He's on a high gantry with no wires and no protective airbags beneath him. Kaufman said, like, look, no, we've got a stuntman. We'll do it. We'll put a curly wig on him, and it'll be great. Curly wig and stilts, and he'll look just like you. Said, and like Sutherland was like, no, I'll do it. It's my job as an actor to play this role to the end. So I'll do it. And he does. And he's scampering around these high-rise gantries, and he's climbing over railings and back over again. And he's fighting pod people who are chasing him, and people said, like, you know, what you don't know about Donald Sutherland, he's a really clumsy guy. You know, this guy can trip over, you know, thin air. This guy, and he's up like 60 odd feet in the air, maybe more, on this precarious metal gantry. You know, and he's doing it all for real, and it's great. And it obviously adds, because you're seeing the guy himself doing it. No sort of like clumsy, sort of like, you know, someone's got a wig on, you don't see their face, it's just shoulders in a suit and all that. Like, it's none of that crap. It's him on camera, his face the entire time. They chase him, and he manages to get out through a window, and he skitters down a corrugated iron roof, and then onto another roof, and then onto the deck, and then legs it again, and that's it. He's brought the place down. Elizabeth also walks in the nude, walks in, and does the shriek, points at him, and this horrible fucking shriek. I will talk about the genesis of that, and which is a new thing for this movie. Wasn't in the original. A lot of screaming and shouting, but you know, but not like this, not to this degree. And she's walked in, and anyway, so all hell breaks loose in there, and they all run after him, and he hides under a pier, and they're all looking under again, the holes in the air, the boardwalk and all that. And they're going, he can't hide forever. You know, he can't stay awake. He's got to sleep sometime, and all this, you know, reminding you, like, oh yeah, we got you when you sleep. But if you sleep, haven't you got to have a pod sort of right there? Or can it happen from elsewhere? Can it be remotely done? You fall asleep and there's a pod with your name on it somewhere else. I don't know. The film does not make that clear. It seems to make clear that it's got to be in proximity, because the whole thing about the tendrils coming out and like feeling you and like getting all your thoughts and memories to bring into, you know, the new version. So I don't know. It's not quite made clear. You could go off to the mountains, clearly, or just live in a cave and you'd be fine. Fall asleep, unless there's a pod next to you. As I say, I don't know. I don't know what the rule is. It's not made massively apparently clear. So, we then cut to, well, is it the next day? Is it a few days later? We don't know. But Matthew has got his raincoat on. He's in, from the first part of the movie, he wears the big raincoat. That big khaki, you know, raincoat. And he's going to work. He's going to the Department of Health, and he sits in there. We've seen it, and this is a lovely little touch at the start of the movie. After there's a caper. No, it's a rat turd. No, monsieur, it's a caper. And you see him in the office, and he's cutting. He's doing press cuttings, and if you look on the press cuttings in the first bit, it says like. What is it like? Spiders fall from the sky, or spider colonies fall from the sky. Like, is that a reference to what's dropping down, the spores and all that? I don't know. And he's cutting all these things out, and you see him in the office, Department of Health, and he is robotically just cutting out stuff from a paper. And there's Elizabeth is there, Pod Elizabeth in a sort of lab coat. Everyone is just sitting or standing, just sort of comatose, and then suddenly you get like over the tannoy, and everyone gets up and they all shuffle out robotically and walk down the corridor. They head towards lifts, and Matthew, our hero, joins them, just walks down, and he misses the lift that Elizabeth is in. But the little window in the lift, you can see her face, and he looks at her. And it's Donald Sutherland, and you know, you're like, what's going? He's blending in pretty well, and then you suddenly see him again. He's in that shot where he follows everyone else. He's not wearing that raincoat. He's just in his suit, and so where are they going? You don't know what they're going to. Some kind of instruction, that the hive brain thing. You've got to come out and be told what's going to happen. You know, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. I don't know. But you never see what that is. The next time you see him, it's dinner time, and he's out for a little walk, and he walks down. It's very sort of overcast. And he's walking down it's the main sort of plaza towards what's meant to be the Department of Health building, which it probably isn't. I'm not sure. I think it's it's the City Hall. Sorry, it's the San Francisco City Hall, and there's a trail of sycamore trees. If regular viewers, suppress your laughter now, because me and sycamore trees have a long and fraught and often tragic history. But the sycamore trees, and they've all been cut down. All the branches have been cut down. They've been nobbled, basically. They look like broccoli. And he walks down one of these, and again, he's emotionless. He's watching things. You see a really horrible moment if you think about it. A school bus turns up with all little kids, all happily chattering, and they're being brought into somewhere where quite clearly they're going to be podderized. You kind of think, well, at this stage, wouldn't they be pod people anyway? But anyway, this is what's happening, and they're being led in. He just implacably watches and observes all this, and then you see him back in this central walkway to the town hall, the city hall, I should say, and he's there. And Veronica Cartwright suddenly appears, and she's dressed in like red or burgundy as well. It's just some kind of theme there. The women, our heroines, are wearing red, and she sees him, Matthew, and she's like, kind of looks around furtively, and he just turns around and looks at her, and you know what we're gonna have to do here, don't you? And Matthew, and she, sort of covert but still smiling, walks up to him, and suddenly he raises the finger and goes, and she's like, Matthew, no, Matthew. And the camera zooms in to Donald Sutherland's oversized, outstretched mouth, and the horror is there because he's clearly a pod person himself. Now, you guys know, if you're any fans of this movie, you know what happened here. Phil Kaufman, they had the script, obviously, W.D. Richter's script, and little bits that Kaufman had changed and added to, augmented. And they said, like, look, at the end of this movie, I'm going to tell you, Veronica, what to do, what happens. And they're going to tell you, well, and he told Donald Sutherland something else. You clearly told Sutherland, look, you are the pod person now. So as she comes closer, you're going to raise your finger and you're going to go, oh. Well, we'll come on to that again, like, oh. And then he's clearly said to Veronica Cartwright, look, you go over and just react to what happens. You can't not think, well, it's going to be, I know I'm not a pod person because I'm human and I've got to react to something, but her reaction is still pretty brilliant. It screams and like, oh my god, it's game over. But the thing about it is, obviously Donald Sutherland can't do the scream, the shriek, the pod shriek, because Ben Beck created that pod shriek and it's put on afterwards. And what is the pod shriek? It's a pig squeal. Squeal like a pig, it is that. But also gone through lots of different remixings and other bits added to it. His own voice was added to it to create, let's do it again. And this is what they brought to this movie. They brought like the sort of signature vocalization of the pod people. Yes, they're alien spores that can take on, I presume they can take on any form, any planet they land on. It doesn't have to be humanoid. It can be whatever it can be. They've got to survive and adapt. Leonard Nimoy's character, Kibner, says all this when he explains it. We've got to survive and adapt. It's the duty of every life form to survive. And that's what we're doing. We came from a dead planet, so now we're doing this now. So, But if they landed on a planet of dinosaurs, they'd have to become dinosaurs, wouldn't they? And replicate those. So because it's humans, it's more like, well, we've got more supposedly complex emotions and thoughts and philosophies and faiths and beliefs and communication systems, as in just verbally communication systems. So more intellectual ability, supposedly. So you've got to absorb all of that. But this shriek is what they added, and Ben Burt come up with all of this bizarre stuff, the pig squeal. Because as I think he said, pigs, because they're mammals and they, lungs and they breathe and they're red-blooded and all that, they have a similar sound to a human, except it's not. It reaches a pitch and a level and a register which human beings can't do, and yet it sounds like it's something that human beings could do. So that's why it becomes very unnerving when you hear it. So that pod shriek is massively unnerving because it sounds vaguely human, but also is an uncanny alien accusation, and you, and it's fucking amazing. Isn't it funny how in 1979 when they made Alien, you have that oft-told story of Veronica Cartwright and everyone when Kane, John Hurt, has the chest bursted. They never told him what was going to happen. Don't you believe a fucking word of that? Oh, we're going to stand here and we're going to ignore all the crew underneath the table where John Hurt is lying half under and a fake body's there. And you've got all this stuff going on and all these blood fucking pipes. Oh, we didn't tell them what was going to happen. They fucking knew what was going to happen there. Don't give me that shit. I don't believe a word of it. I don't believe they knew how much blood was going to come out. But they were just told, look, just react to what happens. And they do. But it's not like they didn't know what was going to happen. How many people were powering that puppet at the chest burster? Get out of town. The first take, of course, and famously they always said too much blood came out and it mostly hit Veronica Lambert in the face. Oh, what did she do? She did a backflip over the chair. Did a backflip over the chair. Oh, hyperbole, exaggeration par excellence. She took a gob full of gore in the face and probably just went, for fuck's sake. They had to redo it again. Apparently, now you imagine rebuilding that and making that gag work a second time. So again, a second time, well, they all know what's going to happen, don't they? So, bullshit on the alien chest burster. We didn't know what was going to happen. Oh, fuck off. And likewise to this, she must have known, well, I'm not an alien. I'm not a pod person. So whatever he's going to do, and I've got to react to it. Well, quite clearly he is. Unless he's going to do like a fucking handstand or something and go like, yeah. Oh, you can also fool them with handstands and cartwheels. Because they all do that, I mean, or drops his kecks and pulls a moonie. I don't know. But it's just, it smacks of, oh, well, look, she didn't know. She must have fucking known. So poor old Donald Pleasance has to have just stood there and gone like, either silently for ages as the camera zooms in, or he's actually vocalised it. But you can't see his tongue waggling, can you? So methinks silence. Anyway, cheers y'all. In the film, you have the Trans-America Pyramid building, which is in so many scenes that it can become slightly annoying because it makes you think that wherever you are in San Francisco, that building's there. It's dwarfed by many other buildings. Well, it's surrounded by many other buildings. And when they built this, the Trans-America Pyramid, it's like the Shard in London. It's a sort of rocket pyramid spike, and the Trans-America Tower or Pyramid, I think they call it. And people didn't like it. It's too futuristic. It ruined, the landscape view, ruined the view, and so they didn't like it. But I think now they do. I think now it's been appreciated. Now it's in many scenes in the movie, and So you've got like people talking, driving, and it's always there. It's in a great scene where Matthew and Leonard Nimoy, so Sutherland and Nimoy, are talking on the veranda of Sutherland's Matthew Bennell's place, and it's a rare daytime sequence as well, with a nice sort of cold, frosty blue sky, and the shot is this pyramid is right between the two of them. Now, I made reference to this when I reviewed this movie before. I've talked about this building, and the reason why it's in the film, to be perfectly blunt, is because Transamerica were funding United Artists, who were producing and distributing this movie. So, well, okay, we'll show your building all the time then, but I think it's more than that. I definitely think it's more than that, because what you see there, if you were a denizen in San Francisco, even during this time, and you might not have liked that building, it would have been a symbol of, like Amazing Grace, a symbol of hope. Well, that building is still there, so long as that's still standing, you know, I would say like the World Trade Center, but like that sort of thing, and that's what I'm coming to. It's a symbol of hope. It's a symbol of, while it's still there, San Francisco is still itself. We can still fight back. We can still win this war. But as the film moves on, and you can't trust the police, you can't trust the medical services, you can't trust politicians, you can't trust anybody, because they're all now pod people, and it's just few little, just down to earth people, odds and sods left who are unassimilated. That becomes now, no, that's the sign, that's a totem of a changing sociological, seismological shift in the geopolitical tectonic plates. Wow! Put that back on a UHD box. That is a fucking great slogan, that. But isn't it? Because you see it more and more throughout the movie. At one stage, you see it smothered by the fog, the infamous San Francisco sea mist. This fog rolls in, and you know they tout this fog, this sea mist, as why they have such great food in San Francisco. Their restaurants are beyond belief. The food there is absolutely magnificent. The seafood is just to die for. And they do say it's because of that sea mist. It helps propagate stuff. It helps the environment, the ecology of the sea, of the land, of the vineyards. Everything works so great because of that sea mist. Even going to Oakland and all that, like. And and you see, during this daylight sequence, I think the fog begins to sort of sweep across the Transamerica pyramid. But I think as the film goes on, it becomes a symbol of, no, we were fighting for this, but now we've lost it, and now it's a symbol for the bigger army. So if you're a minority, then that's become the symbol for the majority. Oh dear. And it's clever. And I don't think anyone's actually said that before, but I don't know. Anyway, I've talked about it before, and I think that's my new sort of feelings on that pyramid being shown all the time. What else? Well, Denny Zeitlin's score, which you've been listening to throughout this really long video so far. This is going to take hours to upload, by the way. So I've done this, and like you think, oh, he just uploads it and we watch it. No, it'll be another few hours before you get to see this, where it actually goes anywhere. Denny Zeitlin, who was a jazz musician and a real life psychiatrist, like Dr. David Kibner, Leonard Nimoy's character, and a good friend of Phil Kaufman. And Kaufman said, look, can you do the score for my movie? And he's like, well, I've never scored a film before. And he'd never scored a film afterwards either. That's him. Someone saying, I'll never score a film again. But what it is, he went, well, why do you want me? Because you're a jazz musician, and jazz brings in really unorthodox and experimental sort of sound designs and mixes and instruments and real different rhythms and beats. You know what jazz is like? Proper old school jazz, or rather 60s and 70s jazz. And he went, okay, yeah, but I want you to bring a psychological bent to it as well, because the film is about paranoia, about not trusting anyone, people changing, and no one believing you when you say that someone's changed. Can you bring that in? Well, he did, didn't he? He used his main instruments in his little studio was a Prophet synthesizer, which had a 12-note vocalization sequencer or something. I don't know these things. And it was a digital analog synthesizer. But he created such agitated, weird, sort of arabesque and sort of bizarre sound design that it's unsettling right from the word go. And yet he does have lots of jazzy elements to it. The nice moments where you've got the likes of Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams. Oh, isn't it such a shame? I keep getting that wrong. And Brooke Adams being nice to each other, and you get like this jazzy sort of interlude, and it's lovely. But then you get the really bizarre sounds and for the pod stuff, and this mournful sort of version of the nice jazzy upbeat theme, sort of. But what's happening here? Listen, you've got that sort of toad-like, rhythm, and this, of course, is where the pods are like about to try and take over the entire bunch of our heroes. But Denny Zeitlin said, I'll never score another film again, because Phil Kaufman was asked him again to do other stuff. He said, no. It took so much out of me. He didn't have a bad time doing the score, but he just, I agonised, and I don't need to do this, because, I'm a psychiatrist. I've got my work, and I play my jazz. And so to do another movie score, it took so much from me to do this. I can't put myself through it again. But again, listen, it's just dissonance, and there's a lot of sci-fi stuff going on here. But again, it's very organic. Now, you couple that with Ben Burtt's sound design, with all the stuff he was doing with fruit and veg, and his own breathing, and the breathing of his unborn child, and all of the other weird, crazy stuff that he brought in. You've got a really incredible soundscape. This was a film that Dolby got massively involved in, and really, it was one of the great 2-channel split stereo effects-driven soundtracks, dialogue front and center, and really realistic 2-sided stereo other channels. The famous scene, of course, is in that tunnel where you've got Don Siegel, the original director of the first movie, as a taxi driver. You've got Donald Sutherland and Brooke Adams in the back. God, I really apologise for this. And the police bikes come up behind him and go around him, and they always talk about, like, in the cinema when you first heard that, you're watching them, and the bikes come up behind them, and the bikes roar behind you. Funnily enough, those bikes, when they roar in front of them, it looks like in the tunnel, it looks like THX 1138, George Lucas, of course, and Robert Duvall, who's in this in a cameo. The connections are here again. See, it just doesn't end. This abstract stuff now. And this is the jazzy sort of elements, again, mixed with sci-fi and horror. But Dolby pushed all this, and they used that sequence to really promote their new sound systems and their new Super Dolby stereo and Dolby sort of 6-channel mixes and all that kind of stuff. Having said that, 2 years before, oh the irony, Dario Argento did Suspiria in 1976, and that had a huge multi-track Dolby system sound mix on it, which blew everybody away. So although they cite this movie Maybe this was the first American movie that actually promoted and really showcased Dolby's amazing talents with it. That could be the case, but Suspiria came before this, and Suspiria's sound design is probably more outrageous and more beautifully detailed and courageous and different. But I'm taking nothing away from this. The score and the sound design and the sound mix for Invasion of the Body Snatchers 1978 is exemplary. It's still highly regarded, even with today's Dolby Atmos and all your fucking freakish bloody D-box bullshit and all that. This is still incredible and works a treat. Very outlandish, very clever, very inspired. And Denny Zeitlin, you did a bang-up job, mate. That is it. And even the score and the bringing in of Amazing Grace. I know that was down to you. It was down to Phil Kaufman, who's had to get in there. But funnily enough, now I've not got the track. Well, I've not got it on this. I have got the track, but I haven't put it onto the full album because that's an extra track. At the end of the film, where Donald Sutherland's character goes out and he's approaching the city hall with all those prune sycamore trees, they play a distorted version of Amazing Grace. It's very swamped, it's very distorted, it's very it's upsetting to hear, and it's slower and it's more mournful and it's distant and it's incredible. I've got it, but if I played it now, you wouldn't hear it. It's very suppressed, to be honest. So I'm not going to play it. Now, Michael Chapman's cinematography. Again, neon noir. They're taking in Dutch angles, which is German expressionism, and they're taking in the film noir aspect of shadows. It's not a black and white movie, but they use a lot of shadows, a lot of stark light, and then sort of front and centre shadow. So there's something happening in the background which you can clearly see, but almost like a split screen of darkness and shadow. You've got faces looming out of the shadows, faces hiding behind the wooden steps coming down from someone's backyard. When the pursuers are running down the steps and the camera will suddenly zoom in on our heroes hiding beneath the steps. You've got all that guerrilla stuff in the streets, which is just unbelievable in its own right. The camera hidden beneath a jacket or a blanket or whatever, and just filming Donald Sutherland, or just filming streets and people walking across, and let's have an extra running across the streets, just capture that, but runs and then it's gone, it's captured, but then you've got people's real reactions or non-reaction. That's the thing, literally the thing, non-reaction to it, because they're not humans. It's clever, and it's clever that they realise that you can film the city streets and you're going to capture people who seem real and people who seem pod-like, even though you don't know it and they don't know they're acting it because they're just normal people. Fucking clever. But listen to this. Abstract, dark, dissonant, bizarre, a combination of tonal and atonal and massive percussive licks. All very distressing. But that camera work again, where Matthew breaks into Elizabeth's house to rescue her after seeing, of course, that body's there, and trying to avoid Jeffrey. And the camera does incredible stuff, falling up the stairs, and then it turns on its side, and you see like the big permed head of Donald Sutherland creep round the corner, and then it tracks and follows, and it's just genius. And again, the city streets become kaleidoscoped and polarized, and it's so much goes on. From a visual perspective, the film is just amazing. From a thematic perspective, it's superlative. Musically, it's profound. Performances are charismatic, energetic, believable. You don't get backstories to any of these characters. You don't need any backstory. You instantly believe who they are playing, and you care you genuinely care about them. This is all important and hugely, impactful. Influences and legacies. Well, as I said, Jack Finney's original novel, which I do recommend, by the way, it's a great book. Kind of it goes in cahoots with I Am Legend, a small dwindling band of people with a huge majority of changed people. I Am Legend formed the zombie cycle and endless, pantheon of zombie apocalypse movies, which we all love and adore. But it formed that. But they're born from the same thing of an infiltration, be it alien, be it existential, be it metaphorically, it's an enemy coming in, but getting you from the inside, corrupting the people you know and love. So Invaders from Mars, again, same ilk, again from the 50s. But The Thing from the 50s as well, obviously, but the Thing from the world, it does it differently. He's a humanoid vegetable, but again, vegetables and being able to propagate itself, and there's elements which do bleed into Body Snatchers. But The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, again, let's not get on the remake track again, because it's not a remake, it's a better adaptation, a more faithful adaptation of the original novella, Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. But again, it's about people being assimilated and changed and then being duplicated. A perfect replica. But again, they're not, because they're alien and they will take you down. And paranoia and distrust. You don't know who that person next to you is for real. Your best friend could be your worst enemy. You've got no idea. That is exactly what this film is all about. So it captures all of that, and The Thing uses that. Then you get John Carpenter again with They Live, which is again is a satire more on how consumerism has gone rife, and we're ordered to do this, and the powers that be control us, and with subliminal messaging and all this. And it's The Thing and I Am Legend and Invasion of the Body Snatchers just done in a different way. What else is there? Well, there's a whole zombie thing, of course, where people look like who they used to be, albeit with a bite wound or some kind of wound on them and a bit of a cadaverish look about them. But they look like the person you once knew and loved or liked, so you hesitate to kill them. And the dwindling bunch of people, survivors who are human, surrounded by all of these. The I Am Legend movies, The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price, I Am Legend, The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, and I Am Legend with Will Smith, about, again, one man or a dwindling band surrounded by people that look, who were once human, and you are now the minority, and you're still fighting against what is now the new majority. So you're the enemy. What else was there? You'd have the likes of The Invaders, a Quinn Martin production. Remember that? Roy Fiennes or Roy Thinners. It's a weird name. It's spelled Thinnes. Is that Fiennes or Thinners? I don't know. Thins? I don't know. And but he discovers that aliens have arrived on Earth, and they've got a dodgy little finger, or is it that finger? There's a weird finger anyway, which gives them away. They couldn't quite replicate other humans without fucking up a finger, and that's how you spot them. But they're in positions of power, and they're all over North America, and it's his 2 seasons. It's his combat against them. It's exactly this. It's Body Snatchers. And of course, you also got obviously the other adaptations or reworkings of this story, Jack Finney's story. Abel Ferrara's version set on a military base, which everyone thought it was a great idea at the time because, well, you wouldn't recognise it because everyone's uniformly conforming to law, order, discipline. So, attention, they're on parade, they're doing everything toward it. They wouldn't show any emotion. Well, having been in the military, you fucking show a lot of emotion, I'll be honest. So, but I like the idea, the genesis behind it. It was a nice, neat idea for a smaller, contained version. More akin to the original 1956 version, small town, a small military base, and who works it out. And there's some good effects in there as well. But the film just it doesn't develop any ideas and just fucking ends. And you're like, I want to love it, but I can't. It's just not a good enough movie. It's not complete. It's an unformed pod person. And then you got Invasion with Nicole Kidman and Daniel Craig, which took on like a sort of neo-political and terrorist sort of angle, a Body Snatchers reaction to 9/11, sort of, and shit. So, no, it is. It's crap. Again, it's a film that smacks of like grandiose ideas and ambition, but no one had any belief in it at all. And you're ransacking something that's sacred and has been done way better before, way better than you can do it. So why bother? And it was a truly detestable version. Now, this is a film that can be re-evaluated and re-looked at every few years. This version, the story, can be looked at and redone again and again and again. And you can apply it to new world politics and new world orders and status. And a version now would have to incorporate social media. Now, that would be an interesting angle to take. How people could be assimilated literally by indoctrination via social media. We're all glued to our phones. We're all glued to, well, some of you are glued to TikTok. Don't use TikTok. Some of you are glued to like Instagram and whatever. Well, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Don't use any of that shit. I just use this and Facebook. That's all I use. But all of those could be used and subverted to a sort of assimilation. And in many ways, we are assimilated to all these platforms. We're addicted to them, and stuff gets pumped out to us all the time. And we fall for it. You follow certain people, Please follow Kilt-Man on YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe and share. But, I'm just a dickhead, But anyway, but you could see how a new version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers would be, it'd have to use social media. It'd have to do it. And that opens up a whole new sort of avenue and lifts the lid on what went before. I think they'd have to change how people would be taken over. It'd be brainwaves. And you could affect, obviously, far more vast swathes of people. You'd only have people who've gone off the grid, who are living, in like Rambo, in mine shafts, up in British Columbia. Only they would survive, rednecks. So it will be done again. It will be done again. And it's a story that can be done again. Sorry, the cough's now about to take full effect. Because obviously I've said too much. I've now addressed the issue of people being taken over by social media, and now it's listen to me. It's on to me. You'll hear sirens and you'll see flashing red lights. Oh my God. You'll see flowers and weird things sprouting up behind me. Or even V. Remember the TV show V? Oh, here we go again. Amazing Grace again. V, the TV show. And you had Robert Englund there as Willie. And of course, they managed to open their gobs and swallow rodents and stuff like. But that was the same sort of thing. It's a reworking of it. It's an invasion. But it's an invasion of friendly looking people. We're all your friends. friends. We're okay. Everyone's great. And then, oh, no, you're not. And you're really something else beneath that. Something organic and horrible. And, of course, the star child and all that bullshit. So it is a societal and civilizational infiltration and takeover, which is exactly what this movie is, and Jack Finney's original book is. Folks, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978, by Phil Kaufman, is an extraordinarily brilliant movie. It takes a different look at it, it expands on the original, and yet plays into everything the original had. Does a splendidly believable cameo by Kevin McCarthy. It's almost like he's been running for 20 odd years since the end of the first movie. He's still running, warning everybody, they're here, they're coming, they're already here, you're next, you're in danger. And that works. That's one of the best cameos I've ever seen. We're in an era now where you've got the likes of certain hack directors chewing into established film classics and creating new movies using legacy characters and destroying everything in a vast swathe. This was one way to acknowledge and pay tribute to the original movie and book, and make it successful and do something different and bring in a legacy character, but use him in a really brilliant way which works in the movie without being flashy and drawing attention to itself. It's clever. This entire movie is clever. The paranoia, the suspense, the performances, the capture of a city, a zeitgeist, an era in social culture and filmic change. The 70s was the era of massive change. 60s ramped up a bit of titillation, a bit more gore, and the late 60s, obviously, like Living Dead and Rosemary's Baby and The Wild Bunch, really brought on the visceral and psychological effects of movies. But the 70s rammed it home with a nihilism and a real, almost, propagandist sort of take on, look, we're going to hell, and we're going there horribly slowly. We're going to eat ourselves alive. If we're not zombies, we're going to be mutants. We're going to be pod people. We can't live together anymore. Borne out by what's happening right now in the world right now. In fact, it's happened in the world ever since, to be honest. But now this movie seems even more relevant now, with the polarizing of people's religions and opinions and politics. Folks, there's a lot to think about with this movie. I think we should do a watch party, don't you? Right, folks. That's it. If you see a priest on a swing staring at you, leave immediately. He ain't no exorcist, that's for certain. Folks, I happen to know we shall be Kilt-Man. Please, in the meantime, in this ever existential threat to mankind in between time, please keep it kilted, keep it Celtic. And I am going to see you in a pod form near you.